Hi, so this is my game for multiplayer distributed games programming CA2. So I'm just going to give a quick run through of what I've changed. First of all, the character movement is different. Instead of applying a velocity, it now just moves by a translation. So we can see the two enemy sprites moving back and forth. Obviously the red ones and the red turrets, they're the red team. So I can fire and I can attack the blue one. If the blue one dies, it spawns a health potion on the bottom. So should the red one take damage, you can collect the health and your health will go back up, as you can see. Now there's a bit of an issue with the gravity, as you can see here when you hit the floor. The gravity system is working at the moment that everything pulls towards it. The floor object has mass, and it has a large enough mass that it pulls significantly when very close to it, but it works just enough when it's at its higher levels. So this needs to be changed for the next iteration. So what I'll actually do for the next is just make that change with gravity, so that instead of having gravity being pulled by the floor, the mass being pulled by the floor, rather it will pull by just a constant decrease in the Y position over time. So the next set of functionality is the towers. If you move near enough to the towers, and you can fire at them, but they won't take damage. The only way the tower can take damage is if you are within its collision radius. So if I step within its collision radius, you can see I take damage. That's what this timer object is for. So when you pick up the timer object, the turrets turn off, and you can see it's not attacking me now. And then the tower will respawn, the timer will respawn. There you go, and the tower starts firing again. So if I go down and pick it up again, now, of course, in the gameplay, this is to be contested by the blue player, or the blue team, as it will. So I'm just going to cheat a little bit here by hovering above it. Again, when the gravity is fixed, this will be a non-issue. Turrets deal enough damage that they two-shot players. Now, once both turrets are destroyed, I can kill the Nexus. Killing the Nexus awards 5 points, whereas killing a player earns 1 point. The first person to 10 points wins the game. Now the game will reset. So just to show player death. Awards 1 point. And then we get the reset. Now, just to prove that you can't attack the Nexus before both turrets are dead, and that the blue functionality works the same as the red, can't deal damage. Now I'm within range. And that's the game. So what did I do in the code? So I'll start in the spacewar.h. Obviously I've included all the header files that have been changed. As far as adding in much to the spacewar and not using the functionality that was already in here, there's not a whole lot, but I've added in all the health bars, like the health bar values, and then they're adjusted in the positions, and their values are again adjusted in the game. So initializing all the textures and just have all the game options. Added in the timer respawn, so for how long it takes for the timer to respawn after you pick it up the first time. Now going through the code, as you can see, they're all being initialized. They're being initialized by here, constant car tower image, so we have the links to all the different sprites. Now I didn't use one sprite sheet as I was hoping to use, but I was having issues implementing that, so I just linked and implemented in here. So in this initialize, I also set up the positions of where everything should be. And continuing on, setting the floors. So the floor objects were just a the texture for those. There are 3 different floor.cpp classes. I should have done this more effectively. They should have been a one class with an enum to differentiate between the 3 different sizes that change what size the floors should be on screen, but I was pressed for time even with the extension, so I just implemented them as 3 different ones and adjusted their positions accordingly and adjusted their size within this CPP file. So I place all these out, and what I did was place I set the collision type as a rotated box, and then set the edge as collision rectangle 2, which is defined very defined. Here. So just having where they take up and how much room they take up on the screen, so you can collide with those. Again, I set up the towers. I have the 4 different towers taking different textures, and then I set all the towers' positions. Same for the ships, and there are 4 torpedoes in the game, so there's number 4, and these torpedoes have different colors just based on which character is firing them. And I initialized all the health bars. Pretty much everything in the game has a health bar. In the update, I changed it just so that when you press the forward key, it sets your velocity for Y in a negative direction for the jump, and then the gravity force brings you back down over time from that. Now, rather than rotate, so there's no rotation there, but if you're looking left, I then changed it to the dot rotate function with just ship NS left, so the character then moves left and right based on a set value. Ship 2 works the same way. Well, it's player 2, not ship. Those need a rename. Pressing down still fires torpedoes. The timer respawn is just a count where I just made this value large enough and kept increasing it until I liked it. But on every update, the counter increases, and when it gets over 2000, checks whether the red tower or the blue towers are off. If they are off, then set the timer active again and turn the towers back on. So again, just if any of the enemies are active, then the health should not be visible or active. And then we have our updates and the gravity force being applied there. I tried using this get velocity for in the Y direction, and if it was greater than 50, then it shouldn't apply any more gravity to the object. So I think either this isn't working or the value just needs to be lower. Round start, it's just setting everything back to true and visible, and repositioning everything, setting all our healths back to 100 for the health bars. So collision is just running through. If they collide with a floor, then it just sets their velocity to 0, so they stop moving. If an enemy is active, is not active, then set the health bars visible to true. Then check if each ship collides with them and adjust their healths accordingly. Then we do torpedo checks on the ships, enemies, whether the nexuses are active and how much score the player should get, whether they collide with the nexus or collide with towers. Player 1 can collide with Tower 1 and Tower 3, they're the towers on the right hand side, and Tower 2 and Tower 4 are on the left hand side. So, more collision with ships, more checking for scores, all done in the same manner. If the ship 1 score is greater than 10 or ship 2 score is greater than 10, then it's just going to exit. So we go to our render, and it's everything.draw. I just increased the font size for the font score on the top, and I moved its position into the centers. It displays the health bars by getting the object's X position and then subtracting half the width. And then the Y position is gotten by getting the Y position of the object that it's to be over, minusing the ship height from it, and then an additional 10 just to raise it, enough above that it moves. And then in the update method, these positions get moved to the player or the enemy's current position, so that the health bars move with them. Again, more tower bars for the nexus, and then for the enemy, draws the ships, draws the 4 different torpedoes, and then ends. So that's what I did in space war.cpp. So we've got our collision radius there, and we've got our full healths just for the resets. I changed the screen size and the name. The sound bank is the same as it was before. When I tried using my own sound bank in Zact, I created the wave bank, and then when I added a sound to it, it crashed on me every time. So again, for the next CA, I'm gonna have my own sounds that I have sourced. They're all in the folder. They were in the folder for the upload. Just every time I try to bring them into Exact, they don't work. The enemy.h, their mass is the same. They're all based on the planet, and the amount of damage they take from the torpedo is defined in these, so their torpedo damage is 60. What I have in here is their maximum distance and maximum distance 2, depending on which enemy is being used. And then I have an update and update 2, one for moving left and one for moving right, and then a damage weapon. So if we look in here, the damage weapon is the same as in every class, and if their health gets below 0, set it active and visible to false. The first update just checks if max distance is false, so we have just a boolean check, and then it checks the sprite data's current position, and whether it's less than a certain section. If it is, then move it to the right. Else set the max distance equal to true, and it'll go in here. If the maximum distance is true, then move it left. Do a check to see if their X position has moved before a certain place, and then set max distance equal false, so it goes around again. Update 2 is the exact same, it's just with the values flipped for the right hand side, so the other enemy, the red enemy or blue enemy, moves in the same manner, just in the other direction. Again, this could have been done better with an integer or an enum, just to say which sprite it was, and then have one update method. The tower.h works the same way, but its collision radius is the same as its height and width. I would even increase this just a little bit more, so that the radius for when the tower can attack is slightly larger. So as I said, damage is the same for the tower. So running through that, I've got some other things, like as I said, the floor classes need to be all in the same one. The health pickup item and the timer items, they work the same as what the initial planet.cpp did, and they just take their sprite data and their collision radius. The only two types of collision I have in the game are circles and bounding boxes. So that's my game, and thank you very much.